my first business to business sponsorship for the podcast, which is super exciting. I think it's just like super perfect. My friend said his company is called Love Amped. Mm-hmm. He is a love coach, and he's specifically a love coach around self-love and having people develop their own self-love and kind of guide them on their own self-love journey as their coach. Mm-hmm. And he created an online course called Blast into Self-Love. It's a self-guided course. I just started it last week. So it's been an absolute opportunity for me to have that self-reflection and be like, okay, how much of this am I actually taking into consideration for myself? Yeah. And I guess what I wanted to share with people about it is that it's been so peaceful and humbling, but also really fun because Seth is such a fun person. Yeah. And so in his videos, he's just like, it's like he's holding your hand, being like, hey, like, what's up? Like, tell me about this, talk to me. Like, it's so like, even though it's a video, like, I feel like he's like there with me, and of course, like taking this course, you do have the opportunity to reach out to Seth personally and ask him any questions that you may have. But yeah, and I think that, this ties in with, your own journey of self-love and like how important that is to go on that journey. Right.
I love that. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So the other thing about Seth's course is that he has partnered with me, which is super exciting. So he's partnered with Love Dripping from the Walls. So anybody who uses the link below to register for the course gets 10% off of the course. So the course itself is $327. There's over 100 videos. They're all like pretty short. They're all between like 2 to 10 minute videos and content and journal exercises that you all do on your own pace. The link below has a 10% off coupon. So that puts it underneath $300, puts that in that like top $200 range, which is super affordable. Both you and I have gone through personal development courses. Yeah. And that's like so cheap. Like I was like, oh my God, that's so accessible for so many people.
Right. And if it's effective, amazing. And it's available to you in video form, so you can watch it whenever. Is that what he's saying then? I mean, it's like you're basically.
You buy it and then there's no expiration date. It's not like, if you don't watch it in 60 days and the video disappears. Like there's no expiration date. There's 100% money back guarantee.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, cool. I love it. Anyone who's promoting self-love on a real level to give people a sense of self and that space of I'm good. Am I taking care of myself? Am I good? I'm all for that. So Seth, keep on keeping on. I love it. Get your 10% off, people. Okay. On your journey. I love that. That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah, exactly. Seth Pearson, Blast into Self-Love. The link is below. Go ahead, check it out. Get your 10% discount coupon and just like blast into self-love, y'all. Thank you for joining me on Love Dripping from the Walls. My name is Elizabeth Cunningham, and I am the host of the show, Love Dripping from the Walls. And today we have an amazing conversation with one of my very great friends, Victoria Tangata. And she is a woman who immigrated to the United States from East Africa when she was very young, and has pretty much grown up most of her life in the United States. And she is a soon-to-be author of a book that she recently wrote. It's called Dancing with Myself, and it's the story. It's a Black woman's personal journey to self-love during COVID-19. And I've seen some of the photography and artwork that you have done around that. And I'm just so excited to read the book as well.
Thank you.
And yes, you're welcome. So the conversation that we're having today is a conversation between sisters, between friends, between queens, of having awkward conversations that move things forward, having heart-to-heart, really awkward, sometimes tough conversations, but that lead to love, freedom, self-expression between two humans that love each other.
Absolutely. I'm all for it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being here today.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here and to be in this conversation with you. So thank you for making this platform and having this available and being in these kind of conversations. So I'm excited. I said, I'm in quarantine. I'm trying to be famous. Put me on everything.
That's right. I mean, that was my goal in quarantine. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to just like focus on, being hella famous and get my message out there.
To get a YouTube channel started. I really, really, really want to. And I feel like that's one thing I felt like I wasted a little bit of my quarantine. Not necessarily, but I feel like I should have. And I still have time, but go ahead.
You get started today.
I could.
What would you make your YouTube channel about?
I don't know. If I did make a YouTube channel, it would be asking people. I always like the question, what matters to you? I don't know why I like the question, but I like the question of like asking them and going, no, really, what right now matters to you? Like, that's your focus right now. That's the thing you like, it could be your dog, it could be, but like when people really answer it, not like that, what matters is that the world and this, and nothing wrong with that. Okay, right. No, nothing wrong with answers. I love them too, if you feel that way. But I love it when people really tell you what really like matters to them at the time of their life, whatever point they are.
Yeah.
You really dig down, like everybody has their own special answer. And I just love hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's great. Well, I mean, that's what I do on this podcast, is like, it's almost asking the question of, like, what's love to you? Mm-hmm. What is love to you? How does love show up for you? How do you use love in your work? On the show, I've talked to professors, I have talked to therapists, I've talked to life coaches and love coaches, I've talked to people that work at insurance companies, all across, I talked to a mom that works for the government. I talk to like a new mom and expecting mom, you know what I mean? Like, so, and we talked about all sorts of different things, but it really is, the mission of my podcast is, my mission in the world, like my mission in my business, is to expand the conversation of love in the world. And my podcast is one way that I do that.
Right. I love that.
Right. And so why I wanted to talk to you was because in expanding the conversation of love in the world, there's this intersectionality that we're in a conversation of in our country and in the world right now of, how does race play a part in our relationships and in our systems of government and in our daily lives and in our schools and, like all across the board, right? And what we were talking about earlier this week that had us come be here now was how does race play a role in friendship?
Yeah. That was a big one. And I mean, it's funny because it's like the backstory. I almost want to give the backstory to us just for a second, just to give the now story of why we're talking about this. But I think it's funny that like the fact that for those who don't know, I mean, whatever about the relationship and the fact that we were in a bar, like, I don't know, a year or two ago, and we're over here signing a napkin where we're like, Victoria and Elizabeth, what was it like? We were gonna be friends forever or something?
Yeah,
like
we were gonna be best friends forever, and we made a pact on a napkin in a bar.
Little tipsy. And
I'm pretty sure we had the bartender sign it too.
Yeah, we got a witness. We said so we were the queens. It was Victoria and Elizabeth, the two queens, are signing this agreement. You know, I love it because it is so my MO to do something spontaneous like that in a bar.
Dude, me too. Yeah.
So for me, I'm thinking, you know, I love this. I mean, I've always loved you at the end of the day, right? And I love you. And I think throughout time, and I know that we haven't had a lot of time to hang out, you know, with our lives and everything. I think with everything that happened, it was interesting that when you did text me, while we're talking about this, when you text me recently saying, how are you? And I was like, you know, if somebody's trying to check in on me, they better call, because I'm not writing my whole life story on how I'm feeling right now about the state of the world. Because I was just in a horrible place, right? And I remember, I think I made it short. I was like, I'm good, you know, working on my book, my project. And I made it so like quick.
It was like 2 sentences. Yeah, it was like, I'm good, I'm working on this. And and then I was like, oh, well, I saw your twin pictures on social media.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And they're really cool. And you were like, yeah, great, thanks.
Yeah, literally. I was like, yeah, thanks. That's it. Okay, cool. Bye. So I was really surprised when we did talk and you told me your experience, which I think you should, for your audience, give the experience like you had in order to even call me 2 weeks later. What was that for you? What had you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so we were in thanks for asking me. I'm like, this is great. So we went to the Zoom sisterhood circle on Monday. So for the audience, Victoria and I are just have a mutual group of friends that hold a monthly sisterhood circle. It's just a safe space to talk about the state of the world, to talk about different things, just like totally judgment-free zone, and always have amazing conversations. And I love those ladies.
Yeah.
Women, what's that?
Women supporting women, for sure. It's the vibe every month. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's just women supporting women in whatever comes up. And there was point in the conversation where we were talking about current events. I'm trying to describe it and like not share anything that I'm not supposed to. But there was a point in the conversation where race got brought up, and everything that's going on in the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's majority white women on the call, and it just opened up this space of just like a sigh of relief of being able to be like, oh my God, now we can actually talk about this, right?
Yeah.
And how the conversation went just indicated to me like how weird I was with you. Yeah. And so after I got off the call, I texted you. Oh, okay. Well, I can share this because you said this. Okay. Yeah. Because we were talking about awkward conversations, and you were like, have awkward conversations, have one awkward conversation that's followed up by 5 awkward actions.
Right. Exactly. And remember, it was basically like we were in this conversation with that, right, giving away inside of people for the first time, that group having awkward conversations for them. Like, this is awkward, but it's freeing. We really got that it was awkward to bring up, because like you said, that group is majority white women, and there's only a few people who jump on, Black women who jump on, and I'm one of those people. And it was amazing to really go from surface conversation to the deep, awkward, but freeing conversation. And I think that probably you're going to get to, but that opened something up for you that had you call me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I texted you and I said, hey, do you want to have an awkward conversation?
Girl, what are we talking? Like, I was so for it. I was like, I don't even know what she's about to call and really talk about. But anyways.
Yeah, so I called, so we ended up talking, and I was just like, hey, I've been really weird with you. And like, because there was, it was even before the conversation where, oh yeah, so I texted you about that night, about the night that happened 2 years ago or whatever, because we took a picture of the pact and we put it on social media. And so then I got a reminder on my social media that was like, your memory from 2 years ago or whatever. And so then I texted you and you were like, oh, you should repost that.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Post that. And then I didn't hear nothing. And I was like, oh, I guess not. You don't have to. I was like, that's a great memory.
it was a great memory. It was awesome. It was amazing. And then I didn't respond back to you. And then after a certain point, I was like, oh, well, then I'm starting to like make up shit in my head where I'm just like, oh, I'm a bad friend. And now it's weird. And now I can't talk about it. And da da da. Like, it's just like, you know, my humanity just like rolling over in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I wanted, like, the day that I wanted to like reach out, I was like, okay, stop being a weirdo and just reach out to Victoria. And but that was the day that I saw a post. It was a couple days after the George Floyd murder. And I saw a post from a friend of mine who's also a Black woman. And she was like, stop reaching out to your Black friends to see if they're okay. And so then I was like, damn it. Like, now I don't want it to be like I'm reaching out to you just because you're Black and I'm your white friend and da da da. And I was like, dang it. Like, I don't want to make it more awkward. Okay, well, maybe I'll wait a little bit. And then fast forward, like, a couple weeks later to the sisterhood circle. And I was like, stop it, Elizabeth. Just like, stop the shenanigans. And you love this girl, like, reach out to her. And so, yeah, so that led to the hey, want to have an awkward conversation text message to then you responded. I don't know if you want to tell your response.
Yes, I got on the call with me. Elizabeth's on the call with me, and she's explaining this, right? And I'm like, you know, it's funny when you're actually dealing with the conversation at hand, and like, what was my reaction at the time you text, right? And I remember going, oh my God, I guess I was annoyed. I was like, I'm not trying to text how I'm really feeling when I'm really feeling something. If you're a friend, pick up the phone and call me. Right. And that's what I experienced on the text that day, right? It was like, if you call me, that's why I kept it short. So when you called me to talk about it, I was so happy because I was like, I think it was in my space as much as it was in your space, but we weren't talking about it.
Right.
And so, but the other thing for me was just, I know that I told you, I was like, I have a few white friends right now that I'm, you know, they're bad and wrong in my head, you know. They are not checking, you know, how am I feeling? Because we were checking it before. We were happy hour every other weekend. We were doing stuff, but now we want to stay. So I was coming from also a lot of reactions myself. Let's put it that way, right? About the state of the world and really just a lot of my good friends who are white, who I just felt like, what happened? You know, you went silent. So when you said something to me, the thought that came up was, how many of them are thinking the same way? I hope it's not the case, because what I loved about what you said, the bravery to just say, that's what was there for me. I didn't want to be that white person who's like, oh, now I'm checking in. And remember, I told you what I said to you was, honestly, I think sometimes when you're faced with being authentically with what's so for you, other things will come in the space to challenge that. Right. And I remember you telling me that it was that morning that you sent, you text. No, you meant to text me or you meant to call or whatever, but you didn't because you saw that post.
Right.
And then later on is when you were texting me, right?
Yes.
But it was like the moment you thought to message me, that post shouldn't have had, at least, you know, I can't tell you how to react to things, obviously, right? But for me, it was almost like when you're challenged with the love you have for people, you have to dismiss the bullshit things people might say about that, right?
Right.
And I remember going, Elizabeth, I've been waiting for you to call because you are my friend. And yes, I could have called you, but there's that feeling of like, please don't allow no cliche Facebook post to ever come between us.
Right.
Okay. Because it could have been, you know, it'd be weird to say like women are dealing with something. So all my guy friends are like, I don't want to be that guy friend calling my women friends because all the guy friends, you know, it's weird. It's like, if you're my friend, who cares what the world says about this or that, right?
Right.
You would call. But the beauty for me is there are people right now who might not be doing it because they're in that space of guilt or I don't know how to come across. Yeah. And the beauty of awkward conversations for me is when you're being real about it, like when you said to me, this is what happened. I was like, oh my God, let's talk. This is beautiful. Let's talk about this. Let's break it up. You know, let's get back to the love and look at what had you, you know, what would have you honor something like a post versus honor loving me and calling and checking in. And we got to the bottom of that.
Yeah, totally. And what you said was so obvious because as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, duh. Like, you know what I mean? Where it was just like, duh, like obviously looking at it from that point of view where it's like, okay, are you going to go with the love that you have for your friend? Or are you going to go with like some whatever Facebook post, yada, yada, yada. And I was just like, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh my God, duh, like what? And it just became so clear. It was like, okay, obviously like the quote unquote right course of action is to, or like, I don't want to say it that way. The action that would be authentic for me, you know, because I am someone who comes from love, who espouses love, who talks about love all the time, have a podcast about love, have a business about love, where it was just like, duh.
Texting, I could sense the love, but I could sense hesitation.
Yeah.
And I was such in a weird spot myself that I just didn't have room for no one else's shit. I was just like, I'm good, blah, blah, blah. But I knew I knew there was someone you were trying to reach out. Yeah. And I also felt like, you know, we're all grown at this point. We need to get to the habit of not texting folks when we really do want to know how they're doing. Whether it's Black Lives Matter because I'm Black, you're my friend and you want to check in on that, or it was something else that had to do with me as a human being in another space of, you know, maybe women like me, or I don't know, if I was a real estate agent and we were going through something as agents, right? And you were like, let me check in on my girl who's an agent, if that was the case, right? But my thing is, I knew you wanted to reach out because I could sense it and I could sense the hesitation. And at the end of the day, I hope that out of listening to this podcast, whoever's listening is, if you're hesitating because you want to come across a certain way, put yourself on the side for a second and then put your commitment in the front. What is my commitment? I knew you loved me, which is why you even called to have the awkward conversation. You knew my commitment is bigger than that.
Right.
It's time you have a conversation that cleans the space and has us return to something. It has nothing to do with just her being a Black woman, this and that. My commitment is Victoria is a friend of mine. Right. And I'm having thing come against what I'm really committed to. And what we got to made me feel so happy because there's so many stuff I had to, own inside of my own reaction and the stuff you own. But it led us to, okay, we need to remember that in the future is we're human beings at the end of the day. And when you're dealing with something, or if I'm dealing with something, I got to look at my commitment to you and not to who, what, where has to say about that. Right.
Right.
And I love that you called. I love that you wanted to have that conversation.
Yeah. And I'm just so happy that you are someone who is receptive to that conversation. And you're just that's why we're friends, right? It's because we're both committed to love. We're both committed to growth. Like we both just like ooze like happiness in the world. And, one of the things that I love that you said on the call was as soon as you have a commitment to something, then automatically there's going to be some test to that, right? Like I had a commitment, I was resolved to call you. And then what showed up was that social media post. I was like, stop checking on your Black friends, whatever. Right. And I was just like, and instead of being like sticking with my commitment and being like, no, Victoria is a great friend of mine. I love her to pieces. I want to know how she is and tell her that I love her. And instead, I was faced with that, decision, and I didn't stick to my commitment. And that's what happened.
It happens. And I mean, it really is, for someone who believes in God, I believe in God. And one of the things I always say is when I pray for patience, he will put me in traffic. I pray for a man, he will make sure I'm alone for a few days. Because God, I believe that you don't get what you're looking for without having to deal with the challenges that come with it. Do I want it? How committed am I? Right? Yeah. And for me, it's almost like it took you a few steps, but you still took the opportunity to go, I'm not missing another opportunity in this.
Right.
I'm not opportunity to have a conversation with her. I've been challenged. This didn't work. I don't know why I honor that. I'm going back to my original thought. Hey, Vic, let's talk. I've been weak. And I'm like, yo, so have I.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's like, as soon as you're committed to something, I promise you, there will be challenges that show up to really have you question, how committed am I really?
Right.
That doesn't matter to me. And I knew it mattered to you because of how you brought up the conversation after the fact, even after, meaning like you could have continued your moments of, we had our moment in our, women's circle. I got to see her there. We got to say hi and we connected. I wanted to call her again and tell her I love her and why. You didn't have to, right?
Right.
I'm like, you were like, not missing my opportunity again. Let's talk, Vic. And so I feel like there's always a chance to pick up where you have fallen. It's never too late. And remember what I said to you because of this. I was like, I swear to God, if you're dealing with that, there are other white people dealing with this, right? There's hesitation because you don't want to be that. And I'm going, who gives a shit about who you're being inside of your commitment to those you love, whoever they are and whatever they're dealing with, right? So I'm glad you were willing to have this conversation for that reason.
Yeah, and you're so welcome. And and I really loved what you said about that. That leads to, for me, that leads to like the one awkward conversation, 5 awkward actions, right? So it's like, okay, like what, to whoever else is listening, or to like any white people who are listening who have had this kind of back and forth with like their Black friends or their friends who are like people of color or what have you. That it's like, okay, go back to your commitment, to this person that you love, and then be willing to have that awkward conversation. And it might just be an awkward conversation with yourself, and the action might be call them.
Exactly.
Find out what's up. Like,
and for me, the one thing I did take away from it is, I'm not exempt from picking up the phone and sharing how I'm doing either. I don't have to wait for anyone to call me to check in on me. And it's not when it happens, bottom line. I know I've been inside of a lot of conversations where even whether it's watching media or being in what's happening right now, and it's had me like pull back and just didn't know how to deal with my emotions. And so those who have reached out, it's been nice to just have a conversation about it. And there are times where I don't know what I'm feeling about it because I'm just so still inside of upset or this or that I know I don't always have room. But what I did take away from our interaction was, if someone texts me, how are you? And I can sense they're trying, right? I could say, you know what, I'm good, but if you really want to know, right? I could say, if you really want to know, we could schedule a call. I could really let you know, right? Because it's like, if you honestly want to know, I should be able to communicate. Text is not the best way for you to ask me this question as well. And I could be in an awkward conversation with my friends who might text me that. And instead of me like, I don't know why I don't have to make them wrong either.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had our moment because who knows? I might have just continued on with my life or whatever, and you with your life. And I'm glad you interrupted it. But I also could have taken ownership of, I know Elizabeth loves me. I don't, maybe she doesn't know we could have gotten to it sooner had I just said, hey, I'm not doing well, but give me a call and I'm happy to talk about it, right? But instead, so I think it's a two-way road too, that if there are people who don't always know how to reach out, but they still want to reach out.
Yeah.
And dismissed either. Just because I'm not a texter does not mean that other people aren't okay with, texting back and forth how they're doing either. But
yeah. Well, I mean, the two of us are definitely a lot more talkers than texters. For sure. That's both of us. And I know that like, there's people in my life who have to write things out. Like that's their process. That's how they process emotions. That's how they say what they want to say in the most authentic way to say it for them. And, and I've had interactions with people where, maybe even the same day or maybe even within that week, I'll get like a Facebook message or a text message or even a letter that's like, okay, we had this conversation and these are the things that I didn't say. And instead of making it wrong, instead of it being like, why didn't you just say it? Like, why didn't you just say it then? But just being like, but just like, who cares? It's just, they're saying it now. And this is something that's really important to them. And again, going back to that commitment, like, I love this person and I want to continue to have a loving relationship with them. And if this is the way that they're communicating with me, then that's, you know, that's the way that they're communicating with me. And if it becomes unworkable, then being able to communicate about that, right? Be like, okay, look, I know that you have to write things out, but maybe I just tell you what's on my mind, you go write it out, and then we talk about it later, right? I don't know.
I agree with you. Some people need space to figure out how they want to communicate so it lands for the person they're communicating with. And I am like, whatever your form of communication is, use it, but still communicate. You know, hesitate to communicate. So I could have said what I needed to say, but I'm glad that I have the kind of friend who saw an opportunity and jumped in, and I was available for it. And I was like, oh, hey, welcome to the party. I could have invited you to, you know, the feeling of, I could have said something, but so much happened. And I'm so used to people texting me, how are you too? And I'm still not a fan, whether it's inside Black Lives Matter, my own life, whatever. Anytime I'm going through something and people text, how are you? It just, and like just call. If you really know I'm dealing with shit, just call.
No, I actually do. And it's funny that you say that. And I think we talked about this the other day too, because it's funny that I was the one that texted you, you know, how are you? Because I feel the same way, because I'm always up to a lot of stuff. I'm always doing a lot of stuff, especially with like the world of affairs and the way that things are right now. And what I'm up to inside of that, it's like when people text me, how are you? It's just like, how can I possibly tell you? In a text message.
And it's funny because I actually want to also just accredit it to the whole strong woman thing, right? Whether strong Black women, strong women, whatever, right? But I do feel like for me, every time I've gotten a text, how are you? For me, I'm like, I'm not good. I need you to call. I'm not strong right now. I need, you know, and I'm like, I think people, when they assume you're strong all the time, they kind of are like, texting how are you from, she could be good. I mean, she seems good. I mean, she always seems okay. So I'm just checking. Let me just slip this little note under the door, right? Versus, I'm human. Regardless of how confident I occur online and this and that and blah, 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 I have feelings and emotion regardless of whatever it is we're dealing with. I'm human. And if you know there is some impact to my humanity inside of some subject, I need you to call and not assume that I'm strong enough. Because even if I'm strong enough for it, it is still a gift to have someone care enough to want to have a conversation, to allow yourself to like speak things that you have been thinking to yourself, or even like just to speak out loud how you feel, regardless of whatever the subject is. It gives you power to have an ear to listen, to really hear you inside of whatever you're dealing with. And that's the biggest, like, I got to be honest, that is the biggest, like I want to say sadness to my life, is moments where I feel like I have been so confident and strong inside of how I behave and all that, and nothing wrong, because I am. And I still deal with something like, I deal with depression, right? I've dealt with that. And I have moments of that. And I have moments of so much about my past that comes up, or present moment, that I don't always show those sides. But I'm so grateful for friends who know me well enough to still call, to still go, I know, Vic, and how are you? And I'm like, thank you. So I think it's important for women like us who are very strong, one, to also be the leading, like whatever, to calling people all the time, like to literally checking in on people. I just did that today because there was a girl on the shower that wasn't a part of, the Zoom call. And I just wanted to call and be like, yo, you weren't there. I just want to check in. And how are you? And she's like, I'm good, actually. I was just busy. And I was like, okay, cool. I got to check on my strong ones, because when you're not present, and now I like, it comes up for me that way. When someone's not present in my space that I know is usually present in the space physically or whatever, and I know they're a strong woman and they're a go-getter, nowadays is I make a point to just reach out to them and just be like, yo, I already know you're from my tribe. So what you're not telling folks, you can tell me what's going on. And we need to check in on each other.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point, because it is something, especially like you said, both of us being really strong women and being seen as really strong women, we've gone through things before where we have to interview people in our lives of like, how do people see us and stuff. And the thing that people say about me is like, you know, oh, you're a badass and like you're so strong and you're bold and like you take no prisoners and like all this, you know, you always go after it, yada yada yada. And then when I share things with people, like I have a hard time dealing with my emotions and I have a hard time expressing my emotions, especially when I have a hard time dealing with my emotions, do I have a hard time expressing those emotions that I'm grappling with. And the first time that and to me, that's not like, I've always felt that way, you know, like that's something that I've always dealt with.
Yeah.
And when I started expressing that, the surprise that I got from people, right? Where it's just like, oh my God, like you have a hard time expressing anger and sadness and frustration and, you know, all this stuff. But you're so expressive, like how is that? And it's just like, yeah, it's like, that's just one of my things. And so, yeah.
Like we know where we shine to some level. We know where we know how we come across to others. There are times where we use ourselves to just like, I don't know, it's weird to say it like that, but sometimes there's moments where I'm like, I know I'm dealing with something, but I need this win outwardly. And it's not really a win. It's more like I'm being a certain way with people outwardly because I'm just like, I'm also the person who doesn't like to burden people with my shit, my stuff. You know, let's be honest, but not like burden, but more like I'm the person who's like, because I didn't grow up expressing myself from, you know, no judgment, just like, I'm sad, I'm this, I want to talk about it. I didn't grow up that way. I was so strong that the muscle of hiding it became a little stronger than the muscle of revealing it. But what came after that too was the muscle of, I'm an outgoing person. But the balance of being outgoing and expressing myself in a way that I don't like later on sit back and go, oh my God, did I say too much? I'm that person. I also overthink some of the things I share, right? And I'm starting to get that it's not that I don't know how to express myself at times. It's that I judge whatever expression is coming out because I've trained myself to be so strong all the time.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to get, I want to train myself in being with whatever is really there and communicating it to those who love you, who hold space for that. Not everybody also deserves that because some people will hear it and go, oh, well, shit. She ain't, you know, some people might not hear it and want to do anything with it. They're more like, well, at least I'm not doing as bad as her, right? So you got to know share, you know, your heart with and give yourself to. I'm learning that, but I'm also learning you also just got to give your heart sometimes because you're not used to doing that. Just keep giving the sense of, I am human, I am out here, I am trying to live this life, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise because it's killing me, you know? So we just,
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, is that something that you feel, do you feel like you've had to be strong because you're a woman, or do you also feel like, or is it because of like your family, or do you feel like you've had to be that strong because you're Black, or like, do you know what I mean? Like all of the above.
Seriously, all of the above. And it started out, I want to say it started out with like childhood. Like as a kid, I had to be strong. I grew up in poverty. I grew up in, you know, a third world country. I grew up with nothing, right? So I have to be strong for myself for survival's sake, not even like emotionally, just survival's sake, right?
Yeah.
And then you leave from survival as a kid, you become the adult who's still trying to survive, right? The same way. I'm still an 8-year-old going, is mom coming home? Is somebody gonna feed me? Is everything okay? But it's new now. It's do my friends know that I'm not feeling, you know, do I even have friends? What's going on? Like, yeah, you know, like same world, different girl, right? It's like I'm the adult now dealing with that. And so for me, the one thing that I feel like I needed to be strong for myself, first of all. I knew I needed to be strong, and I'm not even mad at the strength I've had throughout my life to have the circumstances I've lived through and all the things I've dealt with. And now that I'm in my 30s, I'm not gonna lie to you, but there's a point where it's like when you realize you good now, you don't have to now. So anytime I do it now inside of like, oh, I'm good. And it's like, what are you doing right now? Like, really? Like nobody needs that. They need you to be you right now. If you're not good, let them know. Because at the end of the day, too, the other thing I realized is I'm responsible for me at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And inside of that responsibility is taking care of me. And what I didn't get as a kid is this sense of, I'm okay if I express myself. I need to be strong. And now that I'm an adult who is good, who like physically all that stuff is good, I now have to be responsible for my state of mind with people and express really how I feel. Because at the end of the day, the only relationship that matters to me is the one they have with me, where I'm being me in all the ways and they accept me as much as I accept them, that they're allowed to be human. And I'm just noticing now as I'm getting older and things like being a Black woman, I mean, that's been the case for so long for me since I've been, you know, old enough to even like have a job. The struggle of being a Black woman inside of the world of now, the world, work world, I can't speak. That has already been a struggle trying to be something for others or trying to be a certain way to, you know, get ahead. And that just got tiring, which is why I started my own businesses. But especially in America where you're already, as a Black woman, I mean, God, the statistics tell you everything. We're at the lowest of the, you know, the totem pole of so much shit that you learn early on. If you don't got you, nobody has you, right? Like that feeling. And that feeling comes with protecting yourself constantly. But now that I'm older and I feel like the world is changing inside of, I'm so glad, I'm so happy at what I'm seeing in the world of like, yo, it's time for people to start expressing how they feel about their experience in this in being Black American and being the, you know, a Black person in America, period. African American, me, right? And for the first time for me, I'm feeling like how the gift I can give to those around me is to be a Black woman fully expressed, especially in the places where I feel like I'm failing or the places I feel like I'm sad, the places I feel like it's not cool. It's time for me to now come from, I'm not even trying to complain. I'm letting you know my experience. And it is not fun. And I might not feel great about it tomorrow. I might still be pissed tomorrow. I might still be, you know, sad about it tomorrow. But I'm allowed to have now that space instead of pretending to be something so I can appease the world outside me. I'm so tired of trying to please the world outside me and have them be comfortable. Whoever they are is where I'm at in life now.
Yeah.
I want to be comfortable. And I want my friends to be people I can call a friend because they allow me to have all the facets, including the ones I was hiding under some mask, right? I'm like, I'm ripping it off. And I'm like, yo, if you stick around, we good. And if you don't, well, shit, you weren't going to handle the real me then anyways, you know? And that's kind of where I'm at. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, who or what were you trying to appease before? Like where did it show up for you?
Oh my gosh. For me, it started like, I could tell you, I came to America and I didn't speak a word of English, right? So
when did you come to America, by the way?
To America in 93. The end of 1993. I was
okay.
Yeah, 8. And I spoke like hi and I think a couple of words, right? And so I was already put in a school where like, you know, teachers were like, you know, speaking extra loud to me, like as if, you know, you can hear English better when you're yelling. I don't know why. Like, I can't hear you any differently if you yell at me. All I'm hearing is now the same gibberish yelling. Instead of the same gibberish not yelling.
This is just me being confused at another volume. Like, that's it.
Victoria, do you understand? I'm like, how am I the child right now? And you're the one leaning down, trying to talk extra loud in my face while you're breathing on me. Anyways, my point is, for me, what was the question? The question was, when did you, now I'm losing track.
No, you're fine. My question was, like, where do you find that you have to appease people?
Yeah. So starting with that, me being African, coming to America, being made fun of severely, by kids.
For like not being able to speak English, or like for?
This is a story you hear a lot from Africans to African American relationships. Is a lot of us Africans come to America, and then we have African American people, kids like us, who make fun of us, right? And it's a dance that I have so many African American friends where we now talk about it and we laugh and we're like, yep, that was, but it's a thing. When we were kids, it was just, for whatever reason, the African American kids that I was around, to me being the African, would make fun of me a lot, period. To a point where my brother was fighting a kid every other day. You know, my brother was the soldier of everything. Like, he just was not having it anytime anybody picked on me. And and I always was like, I don't get it. I just want to be friends with people, and I don't get why I'm such someone they don't like. I don't know why, right? And it wasn't even like they didn't like me. I didn't talk to anyone. It just was. So that moment for me, I realized I have to put on a mask in order to either be what they want, whether it was them, by the way, too. But then it was almost like you started looking at other aspects of where is it that I don't fit in and how can I fit in? And as a kid, you don't have the wherewithal to come up with, fuck fitting in, screw it, I don't need to fit in. I'm, you know, for me at least, especially when you don't know the language too, you're just like, man, I'm in Mars and I need to fit in with these Martians. So regardless, white, black, whoever, whether the kids make it, or even, by the way, I had some white kids make fun of me too, bottom line, but it was majority that. But regardless, for me was like, okay, I want to get along with you guys, all of you. So I started to become more pleasing, or maybe more like, you know, I'm not about, you know, any drama, but I really, you know, so constantly, where even like someone would continue making fun of me, I still might be showing up like, why, versus, you know what, forget you. Let me move on with my life, right? And so when you start becoming a people pleaser inside of, I just want them to like me because I'm not doing anything wrong, but they still don't like me, you forget that you were never doing anything wrong to begin with. And then you start building a muscle of always trying to please people inside of whatever you think is not enough about you to them. So I feel like as a kid is when it started. And then every time I was thrown into a different scenario, I was still the Kenyan girl thrown into, because I'm still not the American who's been around, done this and that. So I was still, so many scenarios for me were different. I went from, you know, a school up north to an all-girls school, Catholic school. Like, and I'm the person who clearly chose hella different experiences to have as a young person. I really want to say that because I'm pretty sure I feel like I chose it. I mean, my sister, nobody wanted me to go to private school in that way. Like, they would just like, still, you know, it's far away. You don't need to do all that. And I'm like, no, I want to go. And I was thrown into so many scenarios that were different that I started to almost become a chameleon inside of how do I become pleasing to this group and that group and that. And the more I did that, the more I lost a sense of self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I think when I was 30, I was hitting 30 and I was like, man, I really do not want to give a shit. Like, that came up for me. Like, that was a wish. Like, oh my God, for my birthday, I really just want to continue. I want to, from 30 on, I don't want to give a shit. I'm so tired of giving a shit.
Yeah.
But it's because of all the different places I put myself, but then decided I need to be a certain way to please them. And maybe I didn't, but it became a survival mechanism. And at the end of the day, as a Black woman, there are places I felt like you have to if you want to keep the job. You have to if you're going to be a part of this committee or something, right? And so it was like, I'll give them a little something, a little sense of me, but I got to gauge them. How much can I give without them, you know, deciding to label or call me something else? That got tiring. And that's been tiring. And I feel like that's where I'm at in my life now, where I'm like, I'm tired of trying to be anything for anyone but myself. Yeah. I love me, and my actions are authentic and pure to me. That is all that matters now. And I'm so glad that there's a movement now that's really having us be seen, I guess, is how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I hear, you know, your story is so similar to the stories of the people in this movement, and like the Black leaders in this movement, and different interviews that have been coming out, and with like all this conversation about it, is the theme that I keep hearing is that appeasing theme. Like, who do I need to be, and how do I need to gauge this situation so that I can be me but still be okay in, like, keep the job or move things forward or not step on toes or not be labeled anything. You know, that's your experience seems to echo the experience of a lot of Black people in America, right?
Especially when for me, it's like I've been at jobs where I'm like, I saw it happen to her. I'm not trying to be that, right? Like, you see like somebody who stood up and then got let go or something like that, and you're just like, well, damn. You know, then you start noticing where you're holding back, because you're like, whether it's even like if you keep the job and people are looking at you sideways every day because you for the first time wanted to go, no, that doesn't make sense to me. No, I think I've been here long. No, in a meeting where others have the bravery to say whatever they want, and every time you say something, you're looked at like, you seem upset, and I'm like, damn, am I not allowed upset? I mean, everybody else seems to, but if I say something, so when you see it in other Black women you're working with, when they say something, you can feel them. You're like, oh my God, I'm right there with you. And now I have to deal with like, they might, look at you sideways for that, or might let you go, whatever. And then you watch and you go, I need to pay my bill still. And I saw how they handled what's her name, which is screwed up. So now you got to choose, right? And the thing about it, we don't get to choose how we feel. It's not like a feeling thing, like, oh, I need to choose whatever. I want to express how angry or whatever. It's more like, I need to choose if I can pay my bills this month by keeping this job. So now I got to not say certain things, right? So your emotions become like, it's not as important as me paying a bill because I need this job. And that gets heavy after a while.
Yeah, because it's not just a one-time conversation. It's a recurring, like, dealing with always, like, and I totally get, like, where you would at 30 be like, dude, fuck this shit. Like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of giving a shit all the time. And also, like, it's not like anybody's recognizing that that's what you're going through either, right? No. And I think that that's, like, part of what this whole thing is that it's, when people bring up like, oh, well, like some of these are like isolated incidents or whatever, or like, why would you be reacting this way? Like speaking specifically to like rioting and looting and like protesting and things like that. Like, why is this such a big deal? Or, I thought that racism was done and gone. Like, Barack Obama was president. I've heard that said several times. Where they were like, literally, I've had legitimately had people be like, I thought racism was done when Barack Obama became president. And I was like, where do you live? What are you talking about?
The experience he had as a Black president? That's my question. I'm like, he didn't even get it. He didn't even he did 2 terms because he was an amazing man at the end of the day. But the experience, you watched him, and it's like, if he would have done 2 things that Trump has done, he wouldn't have been in office. Yeah. So the progress you're talking about inside of Barack Obama being president, I'm not going to lie, there wasn't a lot of progress inside of justice for Black people because Barack became president. It was just a moment for us to see ourselves in a position that we just never, right? It gave little Black boys, Black girls a chance to go, well, damn, maybe one day I could be in front of this nation like that. Like I could be somebody who leads this nation, right?
Yeah.
But it also left us like, but at the same time, we're still being treated like, just because he's in the office does not mean we're just out here for like a happy hour special of a president. So he gets to have this moment while you're still treating us like shit, right? So it's like, that's not, because he didn't, like I said, he could have done one thing Trump did and he wouldn't have been in office. So it wasn't, it was a sunshine, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not going to get, an argument from me on that. But these are things, that people.
Sorry, and he's Kenyan, so I mean, it was a win on multiple levels for me personally. I mean, my whole village at home was celebrating. So
really?
Yes. Oh my God! I swear to God, there was a call actually. I think the first term he had when he won. My mom called and she was like, "Oh my God!" She had people in the back were like, "Damn, you guys are celebrating bigger than we are." So in itself, we had a moment. We got a chance to celebrate something, and it was nice. But yes.
Oh, that's amazing! I didn't know that. That's really cool. Yeah, yes. That's awesome. Yeah, but I guess the point that I was making is that like from the white perspective, because obviously I know a lot of white people. That is the culture that I grew up in, and that's like my whole family is white and like all this stuff, right? And so it's interesting to me to see all of the tactics of really well-meaning people, but like all of the tactics to like make racism not as big a deal as it is. Like it's mind blowing to me. Like and that's just where I'm at, like, with it. And so that's why I want to have these conversations, because I didn't realize I did not realize how much resistance there was to, and that's my privilege, right? Like, I did not realize how much resistance there was to what is actually happening to people in our society.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, when you said the resistance or whatever, what people will throw back at you sometimes inside of this conversation, like, well, this Black person said this or that, or they'll throw some crazy stuff like that, and you're like,
or the Candace Owens video about George Floyd that has been sent around to like hundreds of thousands of white people, that like white people are using this Candace Owens video as like, see, look, like, it's a sham, da 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 da. It's just like, first of all, that's one Black woman, like, who does not get to speak for all Black people.
Doesn't speak for one. She only speaks for one Black person, by the way. I don't know. I mean, if there's others, I mean, they better. I don't know, but I feel like she speaks for one, and that's her. And for me, Candace is someone who is a pawn inside of other white people who want to throw that and go, oh, look, your own person said this. But it's like Candace doesn't even realize how she's being used, right? She's just literally, I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm really surprised. I'm like, there are people, I'm like, did they hypnotize you? I'm still trying to figure it out.
No, they just give her a shit ton of money to be that way.
Money. But my thing is like, damn, to sell your soul to the devil for money. Not like that, but seriously, that's how I feel. I'm like, it's just hard to watch it because I'm like, you're so intelligent and yet so stupid at the same time. Like, you're so stupidly intelligent. It's crazy to me. And like I said, I'm not.
Yeah, we're not going to spend time on Candace Owens. We're not going to spend time on Candace Owens.
Right. But I do say inside of that, though, people who basically want to throw like the comments of like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's been great. Slavery's over, and we're not, that way anymore, and this and that. And they want to throw so many facts of like, what, we're all free people now, kind of thing. And it's like, here's the deal. It's like, you've never even been uncomfortable. Like, the comment that I heard, or the phrase that I heard, where somebody said, if you think, if you're tired of hearing about racism, imagine those who are tired of experiencing it.
Yeah.
And that was powerful, because it was like, you're now uncomfortable over a conversation that I've been experiencing in physical reality. You are comfortable with the conversation about something, and I'm uncomfortable because I didn't even call for the bullshit that happens when I'm out in public. I didn't call for that. I don't even want the reactions. I don't want the shit that happens to me or other people. I didn't call for it. But you're upset over a conversation about it when you can't even imagine the physical reality of me walking around getting shit that I didn't ask for. And that's the hardest thing for me, when people really want to throw comments like that. I go, man, empathy is lacking. It's lacking in humanity. Yeah. Because how dare you downplay my experience when I didn't ask for the abuse, and now you're telling me I should get over because I got abused last year. I'm like, but I didn't even ask for it, and it's still happening.
Right.
And now you're like, I find it funny when people are uncomfortable and they want to say stuff like, just let it be. And I'm like, oh my God, that's weird that you're so uncomfortable in a conversation and nothing's even impacting you physically. Nothing's ever you just love, but you mad because this isn't conversation you want to talk, the awkward conversation, back to that. Because you don't want to have an awkward conversation that could free us, really free us, where you don't want to get responsible for things. Well, we both could probably get responsible, but really, like, you don't want to get responsible for anything. You'd rather shut it down and act like we shouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah.